I'm Richard Hefner, your host on The Open Mind. When Elie Wiesel was my guest last time, I suggested that we talk about the indifference, the carelessness that now informs so much of human activity, of human behavior. Not that I wanted to talk about the accidental. In the great swirl of life, that must concern us less. But about the carelessness that is indifference, that does mean caring less about our fellow human beings than being human demands. Well, we spoke at one point about the early indifference of American political leadership to the suffering of Jews in Nazi concentration camps. And I asked Mr. Wiesel if that indifference stemmed from ignorance, if we just didn't know the facts. He said otherwise, said the knowledge was there, but somehow that knowledge did not become ethical knowledge. More recently, Mr. Wiesel said, whatever we do must be measured in moral terms. And I wonder whether Bhopal, the faulty decision to launch Challenger, the taking so often now of so-called acceptable risks in our age, the high-tech age of profit and progress, whether they don't all seem to mean that increasingly we moderns fail to measure ourselves and our actions in moral terms. And Mr. Wiesel, that's the question that I would put to you. Is there a general failure to meet the criterion that you establish?
There is, and therefore from time to time we have a sign given to us by someone or by something. You mentioned the Challenger. I, of course, shared the grief of the nation and the world and the families. But when we think beyond that episode, what should we ask ourselves? The best of American minds were working on the Challenger. Thousands and thousands of people knew that piece of work, that piece of art, that piece of science, better than I know my own body. They knew every cell, every fiber, and yet an accident occurred. Who could guarantee me that a missile, a nuclear missile, somewhere in the United States would also accidentally be fired and go to Russia, or a Russian missile would accidentally be fired and go to America, and that would be the beginning and the end? Are we thinking about it? That means, can we think from A to B? And even better, do we know what A means? So it is the moral and the philosophical aspect, of course, that is missing in all our endeavors these days.
But when you start, you say it is almost as if there was some meaning to this. What did you mean?
I mean, there are so many events taking place in our lifetime that I have the feeling we are living in biblical times. The pace is so fast. So there is a script somewhere, maybe. What is a script? Who has written it? Can we read it? Who is decoding it? There is something happening. I remember years ago that whenever we had a victory in space, and after all, the United States is a great democracy with great scientists and liberal scientists, but whenever we had a kind of victory, almost the same week, an air tragedy occurred. Why?
You see some hand, some mysterious hand. You call it a script.
Maybe at least let us say there is a mystery there. Now, the author of that mystery, I don't know who that is. If I'm a believer, I would say, of course, it's God. If not, I would say it's destiny. But there is a mystery involved, and we are forced more and more to confront that mystery.
And the message, the meaning of the script that has been written?
Oh, to me, the message is clear. The message is that we are coming closer and closer to the brink, to the abyss. We know that the abyss is there. For the first time, we have that knowledge. That means we know that it is enough now for one superpower to make a mistake, and the abyss would occur. It would be not only before us, but it would be in us. For maybe it already is in us.
But if you who believe so strongly in education, in pointing attention, in calling attention to that which we must know about, must be wary about, you focus on the possibility of war or of accident related to war. What about the other risks that we take that are not necessarily related to space, using space as a means of attaining military prowess? The potential in our age of science of destroying ourselves.
Oh, there I think technologically we have made great progress. The medicine think we made tremendous progress. How many people are we saving every year? And that is, of course, more than rewarding. It's justifying our endeavors. But what do we do with the years that are left and given to a person? Do we make them richer? Are we thinking about it? On the other hand, I must also say I'm satisfied with the very fact that these years are offered to human beings. A minute of life is more important than all the books about life.
A minute of what life? What kind of life? Which is a question that I believe you have asked at times.
Right. But still, at that point, I would say any life. Whether that life is being spent correctly or not, it's not for me to decide. I am not God nor his messenger.
Are you speaking as a survivor when you say that? Any moment of life?
Oh, I speak as I, and I am, of course, I'm a survivor. I'm a Jew, I'm an American, I'm a French writer, I'm a teacher. It's all together. The I, as you know, is the sum total of the human being. But there is no doubt, to me anyway, that life is sacred. Death is not. And therefore I must sanctify life by respecting the life of the other. And I repeat, any life is worthier, is holier than all the books about holiness or about life.
You say any life. I come to this question that you address yourself to through this other means, through a concern that we are increasingly less concerned about others and more concerned in this area, in this era, I should say, of progress and profit with our own well-being. And I wonder, I think of your phrase when we spoke last, the maniacs of murder. You spoke about those who were putting people into the death camps and bringing about their death directly. You spoke most importantly, it seemed to me, about others who stood around indifferently. And I wondered whether you feel that that is increasingly a theme in our own times.
Oh, more and more. Anyway, it's become my theme for the last several years. I have the feeling that whatever I do is a variation on the same theme. I'm trying to pull the alarm and say, don't be indifferent. Simply because I feel that indifference now is the name of evil. Evil, we know more or less what it is. It's dictatorship, it's murder, it's famine, it's disease. But the indifference to disease, indifference to famine, indifference to evil, somehow it's here and we accept it. And I always felt that. I felt that the opposite of culture is not ignorance. It is indifference. And the opposite of faith is not atheism. Again, it's indifference. And the opposite of morality is not even immorality. It's again indifference. And we don't realize how indifferent we are. Simply because we cannot not be a little bit indifferent. We cannot think all the time about all the people who die. If while I sit with you I will really see, and I try to see, the children who die now while we talk in Ethiopia, we wouldn't be able to talk, you and I. We would have to tear off this microphone and go and do something, or go and take a plane and go there. If we were to think of all the people who are being oppressed in how many jails in South Africa, or in Chile, and probably Nicaragua too, and so many others, the refuseniks, the dissidents, the Jews, the non-Jews, in so many prisons, we wouldn't be able to continue to try to be logical and rational.
Hasn't that been the argument that has been offered to rebut your cry for concern and attention? Attention must be paid. This is what you've said for so many years now. And it seems to me there have been those who have replied to you, we couldn't go from A to B, we couldn't sit here today, we couldn't go on till tomorrow if we were as concerned as you are with the manifestations of evil.
I think we could. After all, that's what I